Welcome back to another Tactical Fly Fisher video. In this video, we're going to answer one of the questions that I got in a comment on a previous casting video we did. So a couple months back, I did a video on how to cast micro leaders using a sidearm stroke. It's the best stroke I've found in order to reduce your tangles and be accurate when casting a micro leader. If you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest going and watching it. I've put a link to that video in the video description below. But if you've seen that video, now let's build on it. The question that I got on that video was, how do you go about tuck casting when you're using a sidearm stroke? Because typically, tuck casting is done with a fairly vertical rod angle. So if you've now made your angle a sidearm stroke and the rod is fairly horizontal, how do you go about changing that stroke into something you can do a tuck cast with? So let's back up for just a second. Let's talk about the tuck cast, and then we'll jump into how we do that with the sidearm stroke. So a lot of you probably already know what a tuck cast is, especially if you're from the Northeast. But if you don't, the tuck cast is a style of casting that was popularized by George Harvey and Joe Humphreys. And it's a way to get the trajectory of your cast to change as your flies are turning over so that your leader enters the water vertically. And by entering the water vertically, you reduce the amount of surface area of the tippet that is in profile against that water as your rig is sinking, and so it can just drop kind of like a stone, not really attached to anything. Whereas if you land it more horizontally, then that whole section of tippet is sinking against the surface of that water and it slows your sink rate down. Both styles of casting are helpful and useful for different areas that you might want to present your flies, but being able to tuck cast is a good way to get better sink rate with less weight, and especially in techie, low water, small fly situations, it's a really good way to help you convince some of those fish by not having to fish a larger fly with a larger bead. You can get those flies down with the tuck cast. So let's move in to how to do a tuck cast with the sidearm stroke. I have built a leader all out of cider material here so that you can see the cast turning over. Hopefully that'll help you see what I'm mentioning as I'm talking about the trajectory of the fly entering the water. So let's cut right to it. Let's use that sidearm stroke for tuck casting, and then we'll come back right at the end. Let's talk quickly about the tuck cast here and what we're trying to achieve. What's different about the tuck cast is we get our cast to turn over with a vertical trajectory. So normally if I just make a horizontal or a sidearm cast here, like I've talked about in that micro leader video, then my leader lands with a fairly horizontal angle. It presents all of that tippet above my fly in that horizontal manner to the surface of the water. And then all of that tippet is then causing drag in the water as the fly tries to sink. So it slows down your sink rate. If you can get a vertical trajectory, then it's like dropping a cylinder in the water. There's a lot less surface area that is dragging on that the tippet above the nymph as it tries to sink, so it just speeds up your sink rate. So normally with a tuck cast, we would make a cast with a vertical rod angle like this and then just stop it really high, and that drives that leader down in that vertical angle. But as I've talked about, when you're fishing a micro leader, it gets hard to cast the micro leader accurately, especially directly upstream, with that vertical plane of the rod. So I prefer a sidearm cast with a micro leader like I've demonstrated in that video. But normally, like I said, that sidearm cast lands in that horizontal trajectory. So how do we turn that sidearm cast into a tuck cast? There's basically three components. The first one is you stop the rod short during the stroke. So normally I would stop my rod with my elbow kind of extended and in fishing position. So I kind of prematurely stop the rod during the casting stroke with my elbow in tight to my body. So my elbow is tucked in and I stop the rod, and the rod is only maybe 2/3 of the way through the stroke at that point. That gets the nymph to start turning over. Once the nymph has passed the rod tip, and I've stopped it prematurely like that, so I can start to see when that leader is clearing the rod tip. Once it's done that, I extend the rod. So that's your second component. So I stop prematurely and then extend it. And then I also raise it. So you point it up in the sky a little bit at that higher angle. And that, combined with the extension, really gets a vertical angle on that leader and is able to make it so you can stack some slack. So I stop short, extend, and raise that rod vertical. And the harder you drive the acceleration on that premature stop and then extend, the more tuck you get. And you will feel that nymph hit, like in the rod tip. You'll feel it turn over hard as you're making that extension. And that hard hit is when it's turning the corner and that trajectory is turning down and it's turning it into a tuck cast. Now, let me show this from the other shoulder here. To cast on my other shoulder here, I'm a right-handed caster, so I've got to cross my body and cast over my left side. And this is for when I'm standing. If I'm looking upstream, I'm standing on the right side of the river and fishing to the left half of the river. That's when I would cast over my left shoulder. If I'm standing on the left half of the river and fishing to the right side, then I would cast over my right shoulder. I still make that sidearm stroke, but I need to stop it prematurely now. I don't have that side of my body to brace my elbow against like I do on the other side, so it's just an angle thing. I don't want the rod pointed upstream when I stop the rod. I want it pointed just past perpendicular to wherever the current is. So if I stop it in that position abruptly and then extend and raise the rod, I get the same effect. And one way to make the trajectory and the acceleration a little more severe is to add a little bit of a forward haul. So you can strip line and make that haul only like a 6 to 8 inch strip. That will accelerate that rod and get it to drop even more aggressively. All right, so I'm stopping short, extending, raising up, and making a haul in that forward motion as well. And that is how you do the tuck cast off of your non-dominant shoulder. In summation here, there's 3 steps to turning your sidearm stroke into a tuck cast. First, stop prematurely with the rod, with the elbow at your side. Second, after you've stopped and it's turning over, extend the rod. Third, jut that rod up in the air as you extend it. And the steeper that vertical angle on the rod, the steeper the vertical angle will be as that leader drops. And then as soon as that leader falls, you just need to be ready to manage that slack. Because if you're not ready to manage that slack, it's going to take a long time before you catch up to the leader, and you're not going to have strike detection. So your nymph's going to keep falling, and that's great unless you start getting takes on that fall and you're not ready for them. So make that tuck cast. Have your line in your rod hand right here, and your left hand, if you're a right-hander like me, your left hand ready to hand twist or strip so that you can manage that slack and be ready to go. And that is how you do a tuck cast with a sidearm stroke. Thanks for watching this tactical fly fisher video. I hope it helped you to learn how to tuck cast using that sidearm stroke. And if you can put those little extra pieces of the presentation together, it'll add some more versatility to your capability when using a micro leader, and hopefully bring a few more trout to your net throughout each day. If you like the video, please give us that thumbs up here on YouTube. Subscribe to the Tactical Fly Fisher channel. But the best thing you can do to support us is to come on over to tacticalflyfisher.com, where we have our fly shop, and spend a few of your hard-earned dollars with us so that you're ready the next time you hit the water or the fly tying vise. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.